In fact, you should actually. I think everyone's been waiting with bated breath to find out what actually happened at the secret garden party. Had birds and that.
He said to me, just don't let Matt ask me questions. I'm in a fragile mind state.
And
because all these women broke.
Look how far away he's sitting, so he can't even ask.
He's like, what are you doing over there, Ad?
I'm fine over it. Where else can I sit?
The men watching this want to know.
Yeah.
And the women.
Like, nothing.
No, the women are not
There's no
interested.
very
Nothing
There's no
happened.
women.
I played board games in my tent all weekend. That's it.
Board games.
Oh, that's a euphemism.
God, you filthy bastard.
Working your way around the female anatomy.
Board game.
It's like a board game to Adam.
Yeah.
That's how he approaches it, like a game of Risk.
Like Buckaroo.
I'm just making up loads of vaginal wordplay.
Deliver some.
Vaginal, yeah, come on.
I originally got Vegopoly, but it didn't really work.
Vagopoly.
There was something with Ludo, but it doesn't really.
Libido.
We're joined by Laurence.
Libido.
See ya.
I know it's hard to know how to introduce you now. Is it Laurence of the True Geordie podcast? Or is Laurence, because I've known you way before.
Before that podcast.
Before
I thought we were going to discuss that today, really. So.
He used to be Loz, and he's Loz Cast is what we kind of do.
Yeah.
And that's like a play on podcast, is it?
Yeah, although Brian, just before we did this, actually released something called Carcast, where he just does a car broadcast.
Oh, okay.
So I sort of said, that's my suffix.
What about...
It's like me calling myself the True Laurence, do you know what I mean?
I'd love that. That would be good. Even if it was for like an episode, I think that would be good.
It is incredibly, it is really weird to be seen as someone's sidekick, though. Do you know, especially when you're used to in your own world.
In your world.
Yeah. Flash Planet, Matt
World.
Matt World. It's like a record backwards, isn't it?
Go on. So what is it? Because you're in your own right. For people that don't know, you're much more than just
a sidekick.
I
have a number of people who message me though and say, I really don't think the podcast would be the same without you.
Thanks.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be better. He'd just be there, just free to do whatever he wants. And to some extent... I feel
that's
like
what people think.
No, well, some people really enjoy it, and then other people are like, oh, I wish he wasn't here because of his left-wing views.
Right.
It's just a little bit weird when people get so angry. Do you know what I mean? People get really angry.
Yeah. But they get angry at people with left-wing views because people with left-wing views often come across as pious and kind of...
Especially me.
Condescending. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but that's definitely a character that I affect. That's not sort of... You know, if you go home with me, I'm not really ever talking about politics or anything.
Well, I have been home with you.
Yeah. And that was a good night.
Is that what you're talking about when I came in? You're talking about the double beer can?
Yeah. That was beer can. It's great.
When people are mad like that, though, they're probably mad at themselves, aren't they? That's what it is. And there's probably an element of jealousy, or people just take whatever they can as an avenue to express their real, probably frustration, ultimately.
And if I can be the ire of that frustration, then by all means, take it out on me. Because it doesn't really bother me.
Oh, just deal with it, I suppose.
Does it not bother you, like, genuinely, when you get that kind of stuff?
It doesn't really bother me, no. Why would it?
A lot of people are human, you know what I mean? Like, how old are you?
28.
28. So that's still young.
6 months. Yeah,
I'm not necessarily sure that at 28, I think that kind of would probably have upset me.
I've definitely changed my approach to the internet. Originally, I think we had Alfie Days on the podcast the other day, and he said he's got maybe 6 million followers overall cumulatively, and another 4 million somewhere else. And he was saying the sweet spot is like 300,000, because there's not too many people. Most of the people there seem to get what you're sort of doing.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not like 4 million where he feels now a little bit sort of, I don't want to speak for him, but sort of, I have to, do something for all 4 million. Whereas actually there's a nice small amount of people.
Right, okay.
And that's why I felt maybe at like 4,000 followers.
Right.
Because I felt like
They
all
were
these people
behind
are
you.
following me. Yeah.
For you.
For me.
Yeah.
Or just to, and they don't really mind if I tweet or not.
Yeah.
But now, if you tweet something, you get so many people's different days. Like people just, some people like you just get tweets at 3 a.m. You probably get this. Where'd you get that shirt on the podcast? And you're like, which podcast are you watching? Like there are 54 of them now.
Just because you've just watched that.
Yeah. And some of them are like the Adidas one, and you're like, right, yes. I'll just go back and consult. And most of the time, it's just go on the Adidas website and you can buy it.
I tend to not read anything now on Twitter.
Just your shirt, really.
Yeah.
It's like a one-way broadcast.
This is back for the first time. I've been inside this for a few months, and it's come back today because I thought it'd be quite cold, but I'm quite hot and sweaty now.
What does it spell exactly?
Antioche. The brand is Antioche. You can go and get it from the Antioche website if you want.
I tried.
Antioch.
I tried.
Yes.
Genuinely, it was sold out.
Well,
because the day you were on the podcast, I think I messaged you with a screenshot and said, "Where'd you get this?" And you said, "Da, da, da." I went to the website; they're all sold out.
Yeah, I got this a good tip actually. I got this from TK Maxx in Wiltshire, where the style. I don't want to offend anyone, but they don't know how to dress out there.
You also told me that.
Yeah, and so go to TK Maxx's in rural areas where they're mostly interested in
selling
boots
stock from a few years ago.
and Harrington.
Burton-on-Trent Octagon Centre has got a massive TK Maxx. I used to go around there just dropping things. I once followed a man around who just took and we didn't like it. Instead of putting it back, he'd just go, "No, no," and just was dropping things to the ground.
We're still waiting for a TK Maxx in Wakefield.
Yeah,
one day.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
You have to have a population of a certain number, don't you? And then you'll have you'll be considered a satellite town in Wakefield.
What is Burton? Because Wakefield's a city.
Wakefield's a city. Burton's a town.
Burton's a town. So Wakefield should have one. We might have one. I don't really go there.
Well, but Burton does have a 2-story M&S though, which means it has a population of over 100,000 people it could serve. So
I think Wakefield's got to be bigger than that.
Oh no, probably, but it's just. But since Thatcher, it really isn't.
In fact, this is going a little bit regional.
Weird.
Yeah, a little bit weird.
Well, wasn't
Wakefield's in the north of England.
But yeah, just that thing on social media is I've found now that by and large using social media is massively depressing. And
do you think?
Choose not to. And in fact, I do use it. This is what I do. So, like, if you're following me, don't bother because I'm never going to read any of your ads.
Great.
And I'm definitely not going to read my timeline.
Why do you tweet them?
Just because I know people will listen.
Is that a little bit? Do you think that's not? You're not playing.
Maybe.
You're not playing ball there, are you? Flav?
Not really. Maybe it is arrogant. It's more. It serves a purpose for me, and that's what I get from it.
Do you ever think? And I started doing this for a while. Instead of
It's not a
tweeting,
joke,
I started writing what I would tweet in my notes on my iPhone, and it felt just as good.
I'm generally.
It felt fine.
That's amazing.
And I instead of writing, this game was shit or whatever, I just write that in my notes.
It's kind of like porn, really.
I don't talk about.
Don't have sex, just watch porn. It feels kind of as good.
No.
But then you don't have to kind of do the whole. God, you know what? My mum said she might come round in the morning, so you better.
I imagine some people write in the comments
tired.
below. Laurence is the kind of guy to make excuse to a pornography video.
I've seen that kind of trend. They're amazing.
I'll turn to my laptop and go, "I've got a headache tonight," and then just close it.
Sort of a good one is Laurence.
He's the type of guy. Is it that one?
Laurence is the type of guy that would use a knife and fork to cut up his Big Mac.
Yeah. And the funny thing is,
these are all really good, nice ways to behave. Though I don't know what.
That's what I find funny is actually some of I started to reply to some of them, and then after a while there was such a high volume, I couldn't reply to them all.
Is that difficult to deal with then? The fact that there is. True Geordie does have such a massive audience, and a very, very passionate, big fan of his audience, and his not act, but his character, his personality is so different to yours that anyone that's bought into that and that's been loving C-bombs and F-bombs and all that kind of stuff for ages, all of a sudden they get this. Not a delicate little flower, but in comparison, you are because he's a big guy, isn't he? Like tats and everything. In terms of his persona, the comparisons between it.
His persona's big, yeah, but then I think maybe that shows like the kind of his audience are obviously part of that like masculine identity sort of. We're all men in here, aren't we? Women are this way, men are that way, kind of thing. But then not everyone who watches him is like that, and I think we've sort of engaged a little bit more with some of the people, or had chats with people who are like. Oh, actually, I don't feel the same way as him. I watch him for entertainment, or I watch him. I don't agree with him, so I come here to. Because a lot of people who watch maybe Paul Joseph Watson or like some of the right wing guys, a lot of those views are going to be coming from people who maybe don't agree, but they're interested in what the right are saying. So, or they see it as entertaining in some way. Yeah,
or because Joseph Watson's role, as much as it is as a kind of political crusader,
it's king prick.
It's about creating a reaction, and as long as he's doing that, he's remaining relevant.
And I've really been thinking about that over the last few days because it doesn't. How in the long run, how meaningful is that? And the thing is, maybe it is meaningful, but
it has no real value to human life. It has a value to his life. It generates cash for him.
It has like no. Yeah, so it has no value. But
if anything, it makes the world a little bit worse. But
not from his perspective.
It's subjective, isn't it? You said a good thing once, Matt, about Kate Hopkins and Piers Morgan and what they've become and how it's so much easier to be a troll or to say inflammatory things than it is to engage in an actual worthwhile conversation.
Did I?
It was really good.
Okay.
You should try and harness that.
That's good. I don't remember that.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
But the people who control...
I think it's a strategy.
Well, part of it, yeah. But it's not... That's the point, and I think that's really key, is there's not just one strategy to approaching online interaction. There's no blanket thing that works, because trolls will come up against people who it doesn't work against. In the same way that people who don't like trolls will find that really frustrating. So there's no way that you can be the complete human being, but people want to present or curate this perfect online account, which isn't actually genuine. But it tends to belong to the doers. So Katie Hopkins and Piers Morgan are two people who you've got to give it to them. They're a bit like Boris Johnson. They're doers in life, but what they don't acknowledge is they've been born with a silver spoon in their mouth, which is white middle class Britain has presented them as this thing.
Perhaps, but I don't think that's why they're as infamous as they are, or famous
as they are. It's definitely part of their character, though.
It definitely is part of their character. But I think the genius of you watch Piers Morgan and what he does. He speaks out and he abuses, and Robbie Savage did the same thing. Do you remember when Twitter was still in its kind of breaking out period, whereby if something happened on Twitter, it'd be almost back page news. Oh my God, Darren Goff and Robbie Savage had a Twitter spat, wow, and everyone would fucking hell, Jesus.
Now that's hashtag give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for that period, that's what the smart thing was. Is if you look at Piers Morgan, he still does it now really. Gary Neville, Gary Lineker, anyone with big followings, mugs them off, insults them, they bite back, and what that does, that exposes him to their audience, and his followers meanwhile go like that. That's why someone like Robbie Savage, who, let's face it, I don't think anyone would say he was a great footballer. No. I don't think anyone would say he's a great pundit, but his social media following and the checks that is getting signed in his direction for pundit work and for brand work are of a high quality.
So are people mistaking
he's
one
fashioned
for
that? No, he's fashioned that by...
I think he stumbled upon it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of called the art of beef, really. It's the 50-50. I nearly called 50 Cent 50%, which would have been quite funny. But it's the
That's the worst thing he's ever been called.
It's the 50 Cent thing, right? So on his first album, he comes out and he essentially slags off Jay-Z, Nas, literally every single person in hip-hop was making rhymes about them. And that album sold, I don't know, 100,000 copies or something like that. Now, the first album it did. Right. Then the next album went triple platinum, because in response to that first album, you had everybody started to tell their audience about him by saying, who the fuck's this 50 Cent guy, and insulting him, and therefore that told their audience that there's this guy called 50 Cent. So that then set the seed in people's minds, who is this guy that Jay-Z's talking about or Nas is talking about, and then because that then created all the interest in him, then his next thing went
also got
viral.
Shot 9 times as well.
He also got shot 9 times.
That was before the first album.
Alright, sorry,
from the timeline.
But that's the trick that a lot of people have played really well, and Piers Morgan in particular has done that, and Robbie Savage, and it kind of works.
It works now. It'll probably work for a lot longer, because people think, because the people who it works for are the people at the top.
Yeah.
So it works really well for the people at the top. So why would they break that down?
Yeah.
Why would they bother looking into the analytics of how many bots follow Robbie Savage?
Yeah.
And his ultimate engagement is actually 50% of that,
yeah.
Or how many times he's had I wish Twitter had like a constructive conversation chart or something where something sort of comes out of it.
Yeah.
But then that's the point, is actually...
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like width versus depth is what you kind of alluding to. So whereas Robbie Savage might have a following like that, and traditional media, who people are behind it, they're just looking for that vanity metric. They go, how many followers? Amazing. Get him on. Let's get him to do this thing.
Because also they think they can add the depth
of it. You could have a much smaller audience and probably get much greater.
And that's the point that goes back to what Alfie was saying, where you can have 300,000 very dedicated people, as opposed to 4 million vaguely dedicated people, or people who are like, oh, he's all right.
Yeah. They're following because they've heard that it's someone to follow, rather than because they're super interested in what his views are.
But it sort of goes back to the same thing that we always end up talking about, which is like the medium is the message. It's like if you have Twitter, Twitter's very limited on how you can measure whether it's a good or a bad thing. It's sort of retweets and likes and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Some people are just really good at coming up with memes and those sort of things.
Yeah. Or stealing other people's content and posting it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
But then some people say that's actually like that's curation. That's what we've renamed it into, curation.
Yeah.
so that you can sort of can get away with it.
Also, because you can't trace the original source often. So if everyone's doing it, why not dip your toe in also?
Then why not make some sort of why can't Twitter make some sort of
metadata
trackback system?
Yeah.
Where because JPEG
first person
files you can put a this was created by.
So I was reading this article a year or so ago that ImageGer.
Yeah.
They were planning that if you originally hosted the first image, it would have sort of metadata, which you could track back to the original source. Which
not that how many people would actually. I mean, maybe
it would have to become standard practice where people think this is an acceptable thing to do, but it's almost like a regulation in a world where there is none.
But then a lot of people, screenshot and that cuts out the middleman. Yeah. So then you've just gotten rid of that because you've created your own image of the image.
I quite like it though. I like the fact that there isn't a single author trying to copyright stuff or is unable to, and it is at this stage just a free for all of content to entertain, and the purpose of it isn't to monetize it.
But it feels like a transitional time of understanding of how that works, doesn't it? Because everything's constantly in transition, or everything always has been constantly in transition. It's just much more overt now. And part of that is there's no original idea in the first place. Everyone's just remaking old ideas and those sort of things. And that's what Twitter is. And actually, we shouldn't be getting angry that people are reposting things because that's actually a really effective way of sharing a message. The reason a lot of people get angry is because they don't get their money from that, or the creator of someone who put bold text at the top of an image is like, I want my money for that, and you're like, mate, you took 2 seconds on Paint. Do you know what I mean?
What was the one with Arsenal fan TV that cracked me up? I remember. Basically, someone had taken one of their videos, turned it into a meme, and then basically Robbie had taken it and then reposted it or something like that, and then this guy got in touch with him and says, "Mate, that's mine." And Robbie's like, "It's mine. I filmed it. I'm in it. I was there," and the guy couldn't actually see that it was. You know what I mean? Well, he could see that it was Robbie, but in his head, he's like, "Well, I edited that. I took those bits and edited it together, so it's kind of."
In a way, he has if you're changing context and there's a different punchline, then he has a point. But what I'm saying is, if you don't
what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, and who knows? I mean, evolution happened, rather. Really, that's the answer to that. Let's not think about it more.
Yeah.
Okay, just carry on. Okay. I've got a question though. Does social media ruin football for you?
No.
Really? Because it fucking does for me.
But it
didn't on that day when you wrote out "Mind the gap, you fucking slag."
Yeah, that was great.
I didn't read the responses. I just saw the numbers go up.
And that's incredibly satisfying, I imagine, because you genuinely don't care.
So I don't. So what I should say, I have 2 different things. I've got the Love the Shirt account, which is a number of us that do that. I did make that tweet, and I was worried about it coming up to bite me. One time in my life, Spurs didn't let me down.
Yeah.
But that's the
fucking slags.
The Love the Shirt, the Love the Shirt account, which we only follow sort of 16 people, and those people are involved in the podcast. The rest are people that listen to the podcast. But I'm talking about my personal account, where I can see how people feel about football, and more specifically Tottenham. And what I've realised is how everybody feels makes the way I feel about my football club worse.
Yeah, you don't have any free thought though, so there is no such thing as free will or free thought, and that's what social media is just proving to people. But because we all have this kind of inbuilt ego, and even people who say they don't have ego, are the ones with the biggest ego, because their ego is making them think that you don't have an ego. It sort of tricked you into controlling you, and then
sort of borderline
psychopathy.
Psychopathic.
There's a really interesting book called, I think it's not Theory U, but it talks about how there's, and I wish I'd have read this before coming in to be refreshed, but there's essentially 7 stages of evolution, and the final one is alchemy, where you are without ego.
Yeah.
But you're right, there's a lot of people that are on those first steps or 2 steps, and that's these people that are, I forget, but loyalty is one part of it. There's those people that need yes men. They can't accept critical thoughts. Yeah. That's basically the bottom rung of the ladder. So these people that, and you get it in football, don't you? Because if a Spurs fan says, "Well, actually, I think Pochettino fucked up there. He should have maybe subbed on this, or he should have maybe seen that and changed it." That's just you critically thinking about something that you still care about. But then there's them fans that just take that with complete offence. Fucking how dare you call yourself a fan? And all that kind of stuff happens. So you do see that the ego and the base levels of human evolution playing their part, especially when social media went pop and everyone came on it, because it was essentially you the Twitterati. There was the first people. It was quite a cool place, and then you finally get the eggs on board that are the real horrible bastards. The eggs, the army of eggs that are just like, you look through there. Like, I remember,
there's no eggs anymore, are there? You can't have an egg.
Can you not have eggs now?
I don't think you can have eggs now.
Oh, I don't know.
It's part of it.
Maybe not, but I remember you'd see, like, on Righty's Twitter, for example, and you'd...
He's just bald.
Sorry, I thought it was an egg.
Yeah.
But basically, you see these people, and they're saying something horrible, and you sometimes just click on them and have a look at them, and you just see that their timeline is just them, just famous people, being nasty, and you just think, this is just a guy that's sitting at home, that hates himself, and this is how he's...
Well, maybe it helps you to see that way. He might be sitting in the Ritz. You know, he might have a great life.
All right, so we have to do some of the trunk run order. This is quite good.
We do have to do some of the running order.
We don't have to, actually. We can carry on this.
Quite profound. You know, I did have a realisation on Stephen Howson's podcast the other day. We were talking about fan channels, and we were talking about full-time, because Full-Time Devils had just faced Arsenal Fan TV in the Cup. That's right. And we were talking...
Fan League Cup.
Yeah, the Fan League Cup.
Oh, this is the set. That is the Fan League Cup. That's the prize.
Can I see?
That's what everyone was after.
It's quite weighty, isn't it? Yeah. It's quite nice. You see Aston Villa won the same cup as like a load of kids.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So that's six-a-side competition.
Yeah. To be fair, Villa would probably do better. Six-a-side. If they had six-a-side, they'd be better.
So those that don't know, Villa were playing some sort of competition overseas, and they won it. And there's this really kind of ornate, quite horrible and garish, large trophy with a footballer breaking out of
bursting out,
Yeah, it was horrendous. And then someone had found that there was a six-a-side kids competition in an indoor hall in some sort of summer fete, had won the competition, and it was the exact same trophy. Cheap bastard.
Nice.
Cheap, or did the trophy company do a deal, or was that summer fete the greatest summer fete of all time? But anyway, what I was saying about fan channels is... we were talking about Full-Time Devils, and sort of Howson said he'd been recut quite a lot with a lot of clips, but taken out of context.
On what?
On Full-Time Devils.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of Man City fans have been like, you know...
On their channel?
No, on other people had taken his voice.
Right. In general?
Like City fans, especially when City got Pep Guardiola.
Got you.
A lot of people recut him.
I thought you meant in relation to that game, so that was what was confusing.
No, God,
I understand what you mean. Yeah,
no, Stephen Howson's not talking about.
I thought this was a complaint.
They
won 1-1. They won.
He's not talking about their pre-season.
Right.
And he was saying, and then and that's an interesting question, especially with Ball Street, is what a lot of fans want is obviously to be able to banter off other fans or whatever. What do you do when? Like every fan channel's had a fan cry on it at some point or show their weakness and those sorts of things. We were saying it's really difficult then, because you put that out there and their audience might be Man United fans, but Liverpool fans might jump on that, or Arsenal fans might jump on that. It's very rare that you go to your enemy, as you do in football, or you go somewhere else. If you're an away fan, you almost never go up to the opposite set of fans at the end of the game and go, really upset me when you guys scored that third. Do you know, like, that doesn't happen. But now we've got like that weird representation where people are out in the world like expressing their emotions. Some of them are just opening their mouth, flailing them all over the place. And that's a really weird thing. Like, it's really unusual for Manchester United fans to share emotions very openly and share what they consider to be weaknesses.
I think that it's that's
really
true for
weird.
Man City. I think we've actually reached a place where we're beyond where that's an issue. Certainly about making fun of, say, someone who's getting really angry at a goal. Like, you go on Arsenal Fan TV and you see DT going crazy.
Doesn't that weaken their position a little bit as fans?
I don't think people really care that it happens anymore.
But I think people, it definitely upset.
They've done it so much. I would if it was Tottenham, because we haven't had it before. We don't have that outlet. But in that instance, people are used to seeing that. So
you used to have spurred on, but then it got shut down, didn't it?
But there used to be. So I remember this used to happen on TalkSport back in the day, which was UGC. It was a very similar thing. It was kind of people phoning in.
Alan Brazil is UGC, isn't he?
What's UFOE is user generated content. Right. But it was phone-ins. So people would phone in like after the match, and 606 as well. Post-match phone-in, and you'd get it on local radio, whereby people would phone up and they would. If they'd won, they'd be delighted, but mainly people would phone up when they're pissed off. It's just, I think it's the British way, isn't it?
But originally that wasn't always the case, was it? Because actually, for a while, 5 Live and maybe not TalkSport so much, but they tried to take it more in the direction of fans sharing their voice rather than having a shock jock who then having a shock jock who encouraged people to call up and encouraged to make content. For a while, 5 Live and a couple of other stations wanted it to be like, come and join the conversation.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of midway between it, where you have a reasonable presenter like Kelly Cates, and then like an absolute idiot like Robbie Savage, who's just like, but red cards shouldn't exist. I mean, you can't send someone off. And everyone's like, oh, that's ridiculous. And they call in. And at the end of the show, Robbie's like, it was all just a bit of fun, but I have 2.6 million followers. Doesn't really matter. And you're like, Robbie, what are you saying? Like, none of this makes any sense.
Well, Adrian Durham's one of the ones that people...
He's amazing at it.
He is.
He's incredible. I had a personal interaction with Adrian Durham once where even he treated me as if I was a radio caller. So anything
even like just when you're having like a chat,
anything that I said
in the street or the corridor,
a private chat that I
that proves that it's authentic though, and he's
so
not on the wind
authentic.
up.
Yeah, he's sitting there just enjoying winding you up.
He was just sitting there, and he clearly had just tagged onto the fact that he was at least like 2 decades older than me and had a lot more life experience and could just sort of. And he obviously knew I was like a liberal because I said, "Isn't it lovely that Demba Ba has moved to Chelsea?" And he was like, "No, mate, no." And I was like, "Okay, well." I mean, you know, it's a big move, and he sends a lot of his money back to Africa. And at this point, he just hit TalkSport mode. He went, it's all money leaving the country, though, isn't it, mate? You know. And at that point, I knew he was trolling me, and I was like, yeah. And I know there's something quite upsetting about it. I got trapped in a lift with Richard Keys and Andy Gray once as well,
wow.
And they instead of having a normal human
Surprised
interaction,
they didn't like. Sort of like
that's
what I was trying to find out.
Or maybe they shout, "Get off the pitch" or something like that. Yeah. And they instead of having a normal human interaction, they presented at me. So I got in the lift, and the lift was, and we were sort of waiting.
Going up.
Yeah. So sort of like, I got in and was sort of up and you're like, wow, these like two mammoths of dinosaurs of broadcasting standing in the lift with me. And Richard Keys turned to Andy Gray and went, "Well, Andy, I hope this young man's going to the 3rd floor, or he should have taken the stairs." And Andy Gray just went, "Well, yes, I mean, absolutely." And I was sort of stood there watching them, and they were both going, and they literally, Richard Keys finished the interaction and went,
I love that.
What does it mean?
This is almost a Simpsons cameo from them, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. But in my life, in my daily life,
That's
that was when
amazing.
I did like a little thing at TalkSport and sort of got trapped in the lift with them.
Do you not think that maybe they weren't doing that and that was just your ego?
What? You think we were stood there completely silent?
They were playing up to you, Rob, and they were just having normal conversation.
No, but I'm under no impression that it was anything to do with me. It's the fact that they see another human and think, oh, well, Andy, we've just had some Pret. Did you enjoy the hummus? And Andy goes, well, I mean, it could have been. And then they're like, and the woman's just clearing the table, like she just wants the rubbish. And then they go, do you have a big dick, Andy? And he's sort of like, what? Stop.
I love it.
It's awkward.
Do you know what? I remember actually when they'd, I don't know if they'd left TalkSport, but they'd obviously left Sky and that. And they were on TalkSport, so they were mainly doing audio, maybe a bit of foreign TV. And they started,
as they called it at the time.
They
what are you doing? A bit of fun on TV.
They started filming themselves in the
on holiday.
This little park opposite. Oh, they might have done a holiday as well. Outside TalkSport, there's like these football pitches and then a little kind of like you can have a sit down on a bench. People walk their dogs.
Yeah.
And they started filming, and actually they were kind of early adopters really in the digital landscape. But because they'd gone from Sky to kind of obscurity, I remember people just kind of laughed.
It was so Alan Partridge.
It was, but they got laughed out of it because it was just them kind of filming it on their phone or or a Polaroid or something. But they then got caned for it. They got caned for it on Twitter. It's like, oh, how the mighty have fallen, and blah blah blah. And then I think they packed it in. But actually, if they'd have probably been consistent with that, it might have even worked.
Early innovators generally do get laughed at.
They do. You're either too soon or you're too late. There's a sweet spot, isn't there?
It's like a 360 video when we all sort of laughed at James.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the worst videos I've ever seen. I remember people just writing like there was so many comments just saying, "Ball Street, if you ever upload something like this again, like I will fucking kill you." That's like people were so angry.
We recorded a 360 video with Righty once, and we just never put it out. It was a really good.
You
video,
made us buy that first 360.
I made you buy it because I saw room in the budget. Yeah.
You saw room.
Thanks, Vauxhall. I saw room in the budget.
But it's just it's just formats, isn't it? It's formats.
I mean, you either use it well or use it badly.
Yeah. James.
I'm sorry. I just don't know why. I'm sorry, James. I'm really sorry. I don't know when that comes. He's been trying to forget that for these. You know, you've got to make mistakes sometimes.
You do, mate. But just getting back to the whole thing about people being emotional, that being acceptable or not. I think we've just entered this. We've rapidly evolved into this place where pretty much now everything is on the record and everyone is constantly on the record.
But I think it'll go the opposite way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Soon it'll go the opposite way.
Yeah.
People will begin to value their privacy. I saw someone go on a Twitter the other day about their privacy. And they were like, I'm so private, I'm such a private person.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, they posted a picture of their own kids. Right. Like, and they were like, yeah, I'm private, I've got private life, I've got family and all that. And then it was like, look at my little daughter's legs. It wasn't you.
But it was... hashtag likes, hashtag 50 likes, hashtag...
Yeah, and I was like, it's almost become a little bit... It's all really weird now.
It will. The anonymity thing will. It'll. You're right. It'll completely swing back. I think there's a lot of years to go before it kind of gets to that.
Yeah, but it needs someone to innovate.
It will. Do you not think though? Like sometimes when you start to see life, and you see it happening, and you see the divide between the rich and the poor. You know, the amount of wealth that now is occupied by that top 1% of the population, and how. You're starting to see chaos. I mean, it's not chaos, right? But you're starting to see that things happening and hear about things happening that just seem fucking crazy now. You know, in broad daylight, to the stage where you can see. Okay, so what was the one Junior was telling me about?
Junior's the producer, Matt World.
Yeah, that's right, and a good mate of mine and basically some police in, I forget where it was, somewhere in South East or West London or something like that.
In Hackney.
Somewhere where they'd
strangled a guy.
They'd got some kids or something like that, and they'd grabbed up a couple of them, and then all their mates, they didn't like how the police were kind of treating them, so all their mates essentially came round, like 18 to 20 kids, and just started, and they were young, but they started fighting for their mates.
Good.
And basically ended up, because that's, as Junior says, it doesn't matter how small they are, if there's loads of them, then you're fucked if you go to ground. And
would you rather do 100 duck-sized horses or horse? Yeah.
It's that.
How many 5-year-olds do you reckon you could have in a fight?
I think there's, I don't know,
10.
10
more than 5-year-olds.
10? Yeah.
You could take on more than 10 5-year-olds.
I could. You know what? I could
probably yourself for Christ's sake.
I probably could. I could take a class full of kids and just beat the shit out of them.
A class full. It depends
if the shit out of 9
private education.
I'm talking about private education class full of kids. I mean, we're talking about 9, 10 kids.
9 to 10 kids.
If you were lining them up,
tutorship.
go on a full day.
If it's a comprehensive school in London, I don't know. I think it gets tough. You get tired.
You get tired
swinging your arm.
Suburban kids. I could take more suburban kids than I could take inner city kids.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I don't mean that in like they're just tougher.
Yeah, of course. They've had a tougher 5 years.
I don't want to get hung up on these
kids and beating them up.
The police, by the way. But how much?
How do you know
think...
those kids were right? Do you think the kids were
I'm
right
not
or wrong
saying
to do that?
Right.
Whose side are you on in that?
I don't know.
Are you happy the kids beat the policeman up?
No.
Okay. Are you sad that the
I'm
kids
sad that there is a situation that exists
where you feel
where
it has to
kids
happen.
felt the need to have to attack police officers. That's what I'm sad about.
But this is there's a big failing of the system, though, isn't there? And ultimately, people are pissed off.
Mind the gap.
People are totally pissed off, and we're in a world where, for a long time, the way that capitalism works is that it expects that people are going to accept their lot, right? And it's like, free market and all that. I think it kind of does, yeah. I
don't think base capitalism does. I think like certain elements of capitalism, like maybe free market capitalism does, but not all. I don't think capitalism at its very base expects people to be like that.
Expects people to accept their lot.
It
expects them to almost get in line and fight, but accept their lot ultimately because it's governed by the market, and the market chooses the winners and the losers, right?
But that's a funny side, and I always find this really weird the way that we talk. So we talk about football as a concept. I think it might be Talib Kweli or someone else. It's either Talib Kweli or another conscious rapper who says hip hop is what we make it. Like if we talk about hip hop and we're like, okay, hip hop's violent, then hip hop will be violent.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's not some sort of like monster in the hills, which it just sort of exists. Hip hop is exactly what we make it, and it's the same with football, and it's the same. Yeah. It's either Mos Def or, and it's either we make it exactly what it is, and it's the same with the markets, and that's why I always find it so weird when people are like the markets are up today. You're like, yeah, well, this is a load of rich white guys bought a load of shit. Like they could have bought the other way, and they could have changed everything, but they didn't. They chose to keep all the money in one place, And it's not like some magical fairy that's in the middle of nowhere. It is totally in our hands.
But is there a magical fairy?
If there was a magical fairy, I'd totally... How many magical fairies do you think you could beat up?
I had a few when I went to Amsterdam.
Okay. I just imagine you swinging on your own at 4 a.m. in the streets.
In a field.
And just a prostitute calming you down.
Yeah, well...
so to speak.
The point I was wanting to make
about it was just about, right, do you think that we're subconsciously starting to create what we imagined kind of before? So
Blade Runner's coming out later this year. I think it's very similar to that. Blade Runner...
Harrison Ford in the original, is that the one?
He's in this one as well, but even better, Ryan Gosling in this one.
Okay.
Sort of ugly men's heroes everywhere.
You're not part of Gay for Gosling?
I mean, I definitely would be if I was aware of it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm just made you aware of it.
I mean, let's put it this way: all three of us probably are.
Gay.
You definitely no.
It's not about what you're gay. It's about what would happen if, I don't know, you ended up in a hotel room together
with him.
What would happen?
Just a really great interview.
I used to get before I started Ball Street and before I started to wrinkle and age so fast.
Yeah.
I had a period where I used to get. And it happened more than once. Where
people
thought I would look like Ryan Gosling.
Oh, shut up! I'm out of it. I'm going.
I've had enough.
No, I'm going.
I honestly remember the time where on Ball Street shoots, Matt was so annoying that we had to get rid of him, and we'd just go, "Yeah, you do look a bit like Ryan Gosling. Is that food over there? Action!" And then Matt would go and get the food and be like, "I do look a bit like Ryan Gosling. Yeah, I do."
Are you guys all right to carry this conversation on?
You got to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, not. I've got a meeting at 4 o'clock.
Oh, fuck off!
Have we done an hour?
Go and get James. Put him in the seat.
It's 20 to 4.
Shit, I thought it was 10 to.
You're taking the piss.
No,
It's
my
20 to 4.
apologies. I apologize.
Why have you? What is wrong with you nowadays? You've changed.
Can I just
changed.
raise one thing which
Very
I think
busy.
needs to be stressed in this
We've
podcast?
not done any of the running order.
Very recently, I've really been questioning the nature of free will, and I no longer think that free will exists. And therefore, I think there needs to be a conversation in a future podcast about free will, because if free will does not exist, then that means that footballers do not have free will. And technically, we could all influence the free will of footballers to score or not score a goal. Hence why the collective experience in football is the way it is.
I've lost you. I thought you were talking about a movie.
Why?
I mean, there's Blade Runner for a little while. But
Why?
I thought it was free willy.
Why isn't there free will?
I don't think free will. I think free will's an illusion.
Are you talking about? Do you believe in some sort of chaos theory? Where everything's predestined and
no. But it's not predestined. But I think we don't. It's a very weird theory of free will where we all think that we're independent actors, and there probably are people in the world who are more aware of it than others. It probably works in a similar way to money, where money works for you or you work for money. It's one way or the other, and free will's maybe a bit similar to that.
Free will.
So what
you're saying is you're never doing anything that you've not actually already been kind of conditioned to do it.
But I don't think
it's... Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think
it's independent action.
Yeah, it's not always conscious conditioning though. So
Right.
some of the time you're just sort of you might have just had a bad night's sleep, or you might have watched a really good movie, and therefore you've got this one line from the movie really sticks out to you. But that's just your conscious side of it. I think there's an unconscious side to it too.
Right.
I think part of that comes through, and I think you could probably talk about that in a football context.
Yeah.
So in the next 10 minutes, let's cover free will in football.
It's fascinating.
It is. Do you think? I mean, do you agree? Because I had this discussion with my girlfriend on holiday, and we both sort of came to the conclusion that free will maybe is a bit of an illusion. And then I started to think about it in football terms and was like, right, well, what if that means that all these footballers can or can't be influenced by the city they live in or the people they're surrounded by? Or
I think all of that plays a part.
But how much did it take away from it? So
from
is
your
Ronaldo?
Choice.
Yeah,
I understand.
And is it therefore that Ronaldo is better at controlling or deciding what his influences come from, or he's been shaped in a certain way that means that he takes more outside influences and takes energy from those, or less and is able to block more out? And the word of ignorance to
100% actually benefits from the amount of influence he has on him.
So you're because that then sort of plays into it, because you can. The more power you have, the more influence you can have on the world, so the more you can almost control your own will.
But how much of it then is less about the will and more about the will of those around you?
But that's what I'm saying. So if free will is just an illusion, and none of us have free will anyway, then we're operating under the illusion that we have free will, which partly influences our free will.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, just do a 5-minute video on Social Club next week. We just sort of just brush on it, you know. I'd love to see Paul Machin and Chris Pajak discuss the idea of free will in football. And I also want to see. I'd love to see it done with Robbie. Just because I think Robbie would put a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. Do you know what I mean?
He'd probably say it's a grey area.
And I'd also love to know what I'd also love to know what they then think that means with transfers, and if maybe you could subconsciously influence a player to go.
That's probably an easier way to explain this, right?
Yeah, but
so
that isn't how I'm explaining it. Those two separate things.
Yeah, okay, right. You know the Mino Raiola. How many of these players end up going to Manchester United? And Manchester United fans are all going, we can attract all the best players. We've got Lukaku, and we've got Pogba and Ibrahimovic.
Verratti wants to come.
Because they're all represented by a man who has massive influence over Manchester United. Not because they're looking at Manchester United and go, great club. They're looking at Manchester United and go, no, shitloads of money there.
But that's too overt.
And off I go.
That's not free will. That's nothing to do with free will. Well, it's to do with Mino Raiola's free will, but it's not sort of meta enough for me.
But on this podcast, maybe it's about as meta as we're going to get.
Maybe, yeah. I also think the sort of sports space, the Independent's become a lot more hyperbolic. Have you noticed that recently? It's a really great base of work at the Independent, but every now and then, there's a lot of their tweets I find are quite hyperbolic on a daily basis.
Right.
Some of their journalism is great. I really enjoy what Ed Mallion does and what.
It's the nature, though. Isn't it the nature of what it's become in order to get people to engage with your news now?
Yeah, but I think that's again a sort of an assumption that you have to be hyperbolic to get people to engage with it.
I think not for the easiest way.
It is easy, but then it comes down to quality and constant.
The way that news is selected in the environments in which it is. So rather than them thinking what's appropriate for us, people are actually going, well, actually, given the limitations or the constraints or the way that the news feed is set up on a certain social media, you actually need to employ that, otherwise you don't get seen.
So I see your point. Yeah. Then that goes back to the medium is the message idea, where there's.
I think it's the context.
Yeah,
so
but the context is
the context. It's the point of consumption rather than the message, because the message is actually, I think, almost secondary to the way in which it's interpreted. You need to know how to, I guess, story tell or to capture someone's eyes in that moment.
And so that's what I'm saying to you, is the medium is the message. So they use the medium of Twitter, and they know how to use Twitter. So they'll tweet something out which says, a Chelsea footballer has found the new club he wants. And what he actually means is someone who's at Chelsea, he's actually found himself at the club. But we don't find that out until 4 paragraphs down, where the first paragraphs are sort of pithy, like Antonio Conte thought he'd have something to do this summer, but actually Chelsea have pissed him off. And then 3 paragraphs down, we're like, oh, well done. You've told me.
I saw a great example of this today on football.london, which is
classic.
What is that?
It feels like a relatively new website that seems to be run by Alistair Gold, I think, who are essentially become the kings of clickbait material, and I'm sure they're doing very well. But there was one.
Good luck to them.
There was one article today that was Carl Walker-Peters reveals what Carl Walker told him before leaving for Manchester City. And so in my head,
it literally just goodbye?
I wonder what advice he gave him. He's got new
throw-ins always.
He'd never
get an Audi. Sponsored by Audi.
He hasn't said a word. He hasn't said a single thing. It was just outright lying.
Was it ultimately the message that he hadn't given a message, and therefore that was somewhat of a message?
In a certain.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's a bit like the example I always use is emails. So there's if you Google the medium is the message, you'll come up with a social theorist called Marshall McLuhan, who was discredited in the 60s because the right wing took all of his ideas and messed them up. Anyway, he's come full circle, and now he's sort of a bit more mainstream. But there are 4 rules that he says to everything's a medium. He says wood is a medium, the wall's a medium, anything's a medium, and you can interpret it through 4 rules. And one of the rules is about when a medium becomes overused and overstretches itself, what does it become? And the great example of that is email, when for a while we didn't have spam filters, and all we got was Nigerian princes, Viagra.
But you'd read every email. Do you remember the first days of email? You'd read every single. You'd be like, literally, hold on a minute.
There's another Nigerian prince.
Looks like he needs help.
Yeah, John Obi Mikel.
Yeah, and actually, if I help him out, we're in.
Yeah, exactly. And so for a little while that worked, right? But then after a while, all that communication became no communication. Because people were exploiting it so much.
Yeah.
And that's my argument with Twitter and maybe some of the fan channels now and some of the YouTube football channels, some of the big ones, instead of doing good stuff with their money, have sort of gone down the clickbaity route. And actually they didn't need to do that. They could have gone another route. Yeah. And it's really, so instead of being communication for their own fans or their own football fans, they have become the opposite of that. And they've started to only communicate with the people who aren't the fans of the club, or the fans of football in general, and they've started to just go to the mainstream, which is really unhealthy for the game because it takes it in a bad direction. But they're packaged up as, so these big propaganda machines, we all know who we're talking about, are sort of packaged up as the free will of the people, and we're the people we represent the people's voices, and actually it's the opposite of that. So does free will exist? Let me know at Lozcast on Twitter. Do you think free will
exists? I think
exists?
He's broke the podcast.
I like
Dr.
it.
Flav.
I do. I like this sort of stuff.
Before you
but
go,
it also
Flav.
gives me a sort of level of existential angst.
Now,
as well.
Antonio Cassano, through his own free will, decided to retire, come out of retirement, and then retire.
I've got a question. This is a good one.
Okay.
What's the best thing? This is from Lachlan Wright. He says, "What's the best thing about being mates with True Geordie?"
We have. What's the best thing about it? There are some really great things. We have a lot of great conversations. We are genuine friends, and I just want to say that, like genuine friends have to say, we are genuine friends. No, we genuinely do get on really, really well on and off camera. The best thing about it is the. That's a really
How old are you
question. 52.
52. I'd say
That's the bullshit police coming.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about being mates with him? We just get to sit down and talk once a week, and there's something, and it's what it's brought with it is a lot of really fun conversations.
Yeah. You have to say it's the podcast. I mean, it's
But I
it's
want
an
to
amazing.
it's not that.
No, but it's a look. I think you've credit where credit's due. It's an amazing podcast. It is the way that you two, I think, dovetail together.
But now it's getting even better because Brian is his own. He's become a really great podcaster in his own right.
Right.
Yeah, he is good.
And to some extent now, I'm not saying I'm going to quit or anything, but he could do it he could do it on his own without me, and he'd do a great podcast.
It'd be a different thing. I know he could still do a podcast on his own, but to sit there and to do a monologue. And just to complete like that, it's a very different thing.
But he'd have a guest.
Yeah.
A 2-hour monologue would be immense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
what happened to the 2-hour podcast? I'm on my own now.
I forgot to time it.
Yeah.
I was too busy. No, but it's a beautiful podcast. How it is the way that you two dovetail with each other, with a guest or without a guest. I think it's beautiful to listen to. It's very skilled, and some of the stories.
Best thing about knowing me.
The best thing about knowing you.
Yeah.
It's your fashion.
All the shirts.
Your fashion sense.
Probably all the shirts.
Yeah, take that.
Yeah.
Take that. All right, Jack Reeve, he says, "What's the strangest thing Laurence has ever seen on a shoot?" Going back to the porn days, I'd imagine.
I think I told this story on the podcast. No, it was in private. What was it? It doesn't matter. I did when I first graduated. I was full of ideas and full of youthful exuberance, and took these ideas to a number of people, and people sort of exploited my youthful exluberance, and I was a bit naive to it all.
You mean they stole your ideas?
A lot of them, or what I had was that sort of young, this thing you can only really have when you're young. You're a vibrance for everything in the world's going to be equal, and everything in the world's going to be 100%. Everyone's get a 50% share of everything.
The illusion that, or that it's a meritocracy.
Yeah,
that's the thing, isn't it? That you think the cream rises to the top, and actually, if you do great, then you'll get rewarded as such. But it's not fair.
And it doesn't work like that.
No.
It doesn't work like that.
Life doesn't work like that. But anyway, go on.
Life can work like that.
So young Laurence, full of. I kind of knew you at then.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah. And then some people took.
Like we're talking about me.
Some people took. Imagine if I was just really.
And he's like, and I'm sitting here like
This is
oblivious.
the final
going,
payback.
God, who
What
did
a
that
knob.
to you? Yeah.
Imagine if I was so passively aggressively telling you the story.
And then you're like, and he looked like Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. And
That is great.
and then we'd know it wasn't about you.
Go on.
I was the sound guy on a short film shot by a creative arts network that asked a Hollywood actor, I can't remember what his name is, he was like a German Hollywood actor,
Hasselhoff.
to put a mask on of an elephant
Oh.
and pretend to rob a bank. And it was one of the weirdest shoots I've ever done.
I quite like it though.
And not only that, I had to stand.
Yeah.
I had to stand next to the director holding a boom pole for the entire shoot,
Yeah.
and he just kept going, "Brilliant." And I remember thinking, "This is the opposite of brilliant. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen." And it was genuinely the worst film I've ever seen. It was terrible.
Okay. Is it available on YouTube?
I'm going to try and
I'd
find
like
it.
to see.
It was
Let's
awful.
see that.
Matt, what's the worst thing that you ever saw at TalkSport?
Fuck.
Was it Richard Key's penis?
No, I never saw that. I wasn't there. I think that there was the worst thing I ever seen at TalkSport. Christ, that's a bit of a. That's a tough one because I was there for 10 years and it's a while ago. I think a few of the things that were bad. So I'll make it about me. There's a couple of things we could talk about that.
Myself in
it
the
would
mirror.
be fair.
You don't want to get in trouble. Yeah.
Was it Ryan Gosling?
I don't want you to get anyone in trouble.
Yeah,
but
so
I
I'm
just
trying
want you
to-
to entertain our audience.
I don't know. I just a funny one is probably the. I remember nearly having a fight with Mike Parry. That was quite a good one. You know Mike Parry.
I don't know him personally, but
Because
Do you know what he looks like though?
Yeah.
So
I
that's,
absolutely know what Mike Parry looks
Yeah.
like. Once you've seen it,
So-
I mean,
so look,
he looks like an extra from Doctor
Just
Who.
to say that I think Mike Parry is a good guy.
Yeah.
I do. I know him. He's not a friend of mine.
Right. Just want to make that clear.
But what I'm saying is not a friend.
What's the
I
best
don't-
thing about being
I
friends
don't
with
know
Mike
him,
Parry?
but I know someone that is, right?
Right.
And this someone knows Mike in a different way in that he helps him out with some computer related stuff. And Mike's very generous.
Sorry, is Mike
So
Parry now
I
tech
think-
help for people?
I think no. Someone
He's
tech
gone from
helps him.
TalkSport. Oh, right, okay.
So I know from a friend, from his perspective, he's a very good guy.
Right. Does he have a PC or a Mac?
I think it's a PC. It's
PC. I
got
thought
to be
Mike
a
Parry would
PC.
have a PC.
It's got to be a PC.
Mike Parry is not a Mac
I will
man,
check.
is he?
I will get that confirmed. But I think it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was the 2006 World Cup in Germany,
using Sierra.
and we'd taken out about 40 people to the first England game of the World Cup against, was it Paraguay or someone like that?
Yeah,
It was
it was,
TalkSport at its peak, wasn't it? That was peak TalkSport.
It was good.
Peak
Yeah,
sport.
it was a good era. And anyway, I had about 40 tickets, but I also had one for Mike Parry for the match. But I had 40 people that I was taking through Germany, and obviously everyone was just getting pissed. It was very exciting, first ever World Cup, and it was back then when we still kind of had this. England might be able to do it. I think Beckham. It was kind of that generation. Some good players, Rooney and that. And
were you just holding the ticket up like
I
this? and going,
had-
come on, Mike. Come on, Mike.
no, well, he's quite.
He's
but-
stocky, but he's not tall. is
No,
he?
he's not tall.
No.
But his mouth's big. But anyway, so I was going along to meet him ahead of this game, but I had 40 people with me, so I'm like herding drunk cats through Germany, and although they do have a good rail system. And we get there, and
Cats don't like rails.
all morning he's like a kid, and he's like, "Where's the fucking ticket? Where's the ticket?" And I'm just like, "Look, mate, honestly, I'm on my way down there. I'll get there when I get there. I'll definitely be in before the start of the match. Don't worry, I'll meet you outside. I'm definitely coming, but my hands are tied because we're working. This is TalkSport, you know what I mean?" And he's just going on and going on and going on.
Did he sign all his text messages, Mike Parry?
No.
He seems like the type of guy to sign it.
Where's my ticket, Mike
Sincerely.
yeah.
Isn't that,
You better have my ticket, Mike.
And I'm like, did you mean to send that to me, Matt? And and
Matt Parry.
Basically, by the time we get there, he's just steaming angry, and I'm kind, and he
You're a
basically
bit
starts
pissed
kicking
off as
off
well.
in front. So I had to basically just kind of
Did you get him in a
tell
choke?
him. No, I didn't get him in a choke, but I mean, it was very weird. Was it Stuttgart or
think it was Stuttgart, and on the way up to the ground, it was a bit like an industrial set. So I was kind of meeting him in on all the grass and stuff like that, and there was like various fencing to kind of checkpoints people could go through tickets, and he's waiting in this particular place, and he's just steaming and getting really angry. So we just have this face-to-face kind of confrontation in front of all our clients and stuff like that. But I was literally ready. I was just thinking, since you wound me up all day, like I will fucking kill you.
There's no
now.
way talent is ever going to come off looking good in that situation. Talent, whenever they get angry, never look good.
That's because their egos will not allow them to.
No. But
they never look. There's no way they can look
just
beyond
see the injustice. I'm not saying this is from Mike Parry at all, but you find people that.
But no, he's
sound guy.
He was
He's worried about not getting in.
Yeah,
just a sound.
He's tense, but it's he's very tense. But I've seen a lot of other stuff as well.
It does seem like a tense place.
Right, this has been glorious. You can carry on. I've got a serious.
Can you send James down?
There's one more question, which I
James.
think's a good one
Can
from
I-
Will the intern. What is your biggest weakness?
All right, we'll do this and then
and then we'll call it.
question.
All right. What is your biggest weakness?
Wow.
Probably.
What's yours? While Laurence is.
Probably how passionate I am about football.
Yeah, I was going to say. While Laurence finds a humble kind of. Like that the interview one. Tell him a positive and a negative. God, do you know what? I'm just.
It's
I
probably
work,
how,
I work too hard.
I work too much.
Yeah, I really
if
work
anything.
too hard. No, go on. What's your weakness,
Probably how
Flav?
bloody lovable.
Women.
Women.
Yeah.
Sex.
Do you know what I mean?
You just work too many
All
women.
the sex, all of the women.
Oral sex.
All of the time.
Your weakness is oral sex.
No,
You and Mike Parry have so
women
much
are
in
not.
common.
Women are not my weakness at all. No, I've got a very, very lovely woman who I love.
You have?
And women were, but now they're not because I'm in love.
It's lovely.
Right.
Man.
Yeah, there are
You're
things.
in
that-
love as
Love is
well.
your biggest weakness.
It's not weakness, it's strength.
What's yours?
It's definitely not love.
Maybe it's that you give your
that's a
ideas
weakness.
too easily.
Yeah.
Quite trusting, but then that's another one of those ego ones, isn't it? I'm late quite a lot, which really annoys a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
But it's sort of worth the wait, is what I think. I could definitely be more on time.
Yeah.
I'd say one of my weaknesses is not seeking the party all the time.
What?
Realising that I'm always seeking the party.
Are you?
Yeah.
How often do you find the party?
Well, quite often actually. Yeah.
Does the party? Do you find the party, or does the party find you?
I feel like I should be more like you've had the party and now you're grown up.
All right.
That's what I feel like I should be more grown up.
You have to go through the stages of life, and I feel like Matt's gone through the stages quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like you've definitely gone through very marked
Matt
stages.
to me, when I look at Matt, I see him as this, and that's exactly how you're supposed to be in life.
Yeah.
My mum just tapering off, like going down.
Sort of-
No, you're not going down.
He looks like
no,
it.
no, you're not. You're tapering off, and
Can we get instant replay on that?
No, and this is just happiness and security,
Right.
and that's where you are, and that's.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I'm going past you.
I hope so, mate.
What's the best ground
totally.
you've been to
I feel
outside
like,
the UK?
I feel like I need some guidance.
What's the best ground you've been to outside the UK?
Oh, I would say Dortmund, but I nearly died, so probably not.
Why'd you nearly die?
There's a lot of crushing outside. It was
You know
terrible.
what? I found that as well. It was quite a crushing to get in.
Yeah,
It wasn't a great ground to get
They
into.
changed the way away fans got into the ground after Spurs. So there's like 14 people get injured, one on the stretcher.
Just from getting in, just from the,
got
like a
crushed,
massive.
They wouldn't let people in, and there were people coming in behind. And
Then they introduced a Mike Parry at the back of the line. Hadouken.
I'd say Bernabeu. Bernabeu's my favourite ground away.
Bernabeu's a good ground.
Beautiful, yeah.
Mine's probably Gig Lane. Well, we've never been to these big. No, we've never been to these big stadiums. have we?
What about Stuttgart and Germany? No, sure that was-
Yeah, they were all right.
Did you go to South Africa?
I did go South. I went to a few places in South Africa. That was cool.
That looked.
It was all right.
really-
Yeah, they were good, but do you know, in fact, my favourite ever place to have gone and watched sport, I would say, would be the Velodrome in Marseille. Before it was done, and it had those huge big steps, and it was actually rugby that I was there for, and I fucking hate rugby, but I had to go because of work.
But you was impressed by the way it looked and felt.
We played Australia, and I thought I can get up for that because it's a bit of a, and we beat Australia there, and it was open top. It was a cool atmosphere. I like that.
You going to take the new camp?
No, I didn't actually think it was.
All that. You were right at the top though, weren't you? You did a piece of work with Geordie.
They were all. San Siro is a really great ground. San Siro for atmosphere is incredible.
I didn't like it. I've been there twice.
With which teams?
Spurs.
With one with Inter, one with AC.
Yeah.
I think AC have definitely got a different atmosphere to Inter.
Absolutely.
Two
Oh,
very
really?
different
Really?
atmospheres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So Inter's better.
No,
I
didn't.
The full experience of the stadium was with AC Milan when the stadium was full.
Inter Milan it was like there was 2/3 of not even there.
Well, we said it looked like there's been some sort of nuclear fallout, and the people on the pitch were playing for the food of the people watching. Like that's what it looked like. Do you know what I mean? But it was because there was fog. So it's a bit of a weird stadium. The open sides mean that fog sort of drifts in, and then they do all the flares and stuff. So it only gets foggier. Right. And then we were in the like the ultras bit, and not only are they all smoking weed, so there's a great cloud of weed.
Yeah.
There's also just massive flags, and so you're watching football like this. Like you don't see anything. And we saw one of the big Italian guys go up to one of the kids. He's like egging the guys on. There's some guys who don't watch the entire game. Like it happens at Crystal Palace and stuff like that. But we were on the upper tier, and this guy just got him. Sorry, I don't want to. It's from TK Maxx. It grabbed him and like lowered him over the edge, as if to say like I'll drop you over the side. And the guy was like,
If what?
I don't know. I guess he'd done something wrong in Italian. And then he sort of grabbed him and put him back and then pulled him back in. And
maybe that's just what they do. Maybe that's like a buzz for him. It's almost like a bit.
No, but you could tell
it's almost
the guy.
like you know when they like cut their hands and they're like they become blood brothers.
Well, he's a bit boring. He'll just entertain himself by just hanging on this kid.
This guy was definitely the leader of the group though, because everyone sort of tensed up when he got around, and then when he left, everyone sort of relaxed. And everyone was like, "You fucking, you thought you were gonna fall, you fucking idiot." Yeah,
it's an initiation. It's maybe an initiation. It's
maybe.
Interesting that. In fact, the best. I won't say it's the best stadium, but I went to see.
What time is it?
4.
In Peru, a game there when Cinciano, which is Cusco, which is the gateway to Machu Picchu, one of the wonders of the world, and they won. It was the first time they'd ever won it in there. It was their centenary year, and I think that the Peruvian league, because of the terrain, it's obviously hard to get around the Andes, so away trips it wouldn't happen. So I think they do it in like 2 regions, and then they play off in the final over 2 legs. And basically it was Cinciano versus Lima. And so I was in my first day in Cusco was where they'd won their league, right? So there's huge party. Only Spanish I knew there was Norberto Solana, which I used to kind of.
By the way, that's a name that's not actual Spanish.
No, it's not. It's just
it's the way you.
Yeah, but that's I was like Norberto Solana. People were like, hey, and then giving me their homemade whiskey, which was
moonshine,
horrible, but very heavy. But anyway, whilst we were there, the final was played, and we went to that game. Right, managed to get tickets to it. Fucking madness! I found pictures actually the other day. This was before. This must be like 2000 maybe 2001.
What kind of phone do you have? Like a Sage M65?
I think it was a fucking camera. I probably wouldn't even taken a phone away with me on a trip like that then. So it was a camera. I found all these pictures, but basically they were taking corners. And the missiles and stuff were so much that the armoured police come on and they make a shield. It's almost like Batfink, or like that kind of big wing that I have to set corners. But they lost in that, and it was kind of upsetting. But it was fucking the best atmosphere ever.
I've come up with the best stadium I've ever been to, but it doesn't exist anymore.
What was it?
A Shakhtar Donetsk stadium.
Okay.
And we went during the Ukraine-Poland Euros in 2012. And obviously now it's been sort of bombed quite a lot.
Yeah.
But what they built, which I really liked, was a stadium in the middle of a park. So there was like a utopian park surrounding it, and there were so Shakhtar I think means the miners of.
Right.
And so they had they had some sort of weird propaganda statues of like a soldier and a miner standing together in the park. But the park was very nice. And then there was some Russian fans there. It was a little bit weird, and they were sort of like all telling us how welcome we were to Russia. But it was a bit like, you think you've protested a bit too much, you know? You've told me we're welcome in Russia like 9 times now during this conversation, Where do you think the toilets are? Oh no, you're absolutely welcome in Russia. Well, yeah, but do you want to share some food? You're welcome in Russia. We get it, mate.
Have you seen the film Get Out?
Yes, it was exactly. But I never would say that I'm the black guy in that situation.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
you kind of did.
But it was an incredible stadium, which was really amazingly lit from the outside. It was a great place to watch football because you're really close to the pitch.
Right.
And there were all of the match day, or at least the match day hospitality that we had, was sort of in little huts around the park.
Right.
And there are just a load of Ukrainian people in these huts just serving drinks and food and all sorts of things. And it was amazing. And then it got bombed to hell, but it was like the perfect place to go and watch football. This beautiful park with little waterfalls and stuff.
Utopia, because utopian is almost your own self-construct of utopia, right?
Would that be right? Really is my own.
Your own. That's what I was like. Is it theirs or yours? And what would be in your utopian park? Strippers.
A massive fucking gap which Chelsea fans can mind.
A massive cock-shaped fountain.
Well, no, you're kind of ruining my joke and my shit. You're kind of overdoing it. But I would say niche pornography.
Niche pornography.
When you say niche,
that's another weakness of mine as well.
Do you mean the sort of social theorist and profound thinker?
Yeah. No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I just remember the obscure, random, weird porn. Yeah.
Okay, but if you found a watch on the ground, would you believe that was made by a human or?
I don't understand niche
Brilliant.
that well.
You should.
Can this be the end?
On that bombshell.
Oh, fuck off. We've still got to do Cassano.
Yeah.
Right, on that bombshell, it's over. Say
over.
goodbye, Laurence.
But no,
Say goodbye.
Can you subscribe as well, please?
Yeah, if you have to.
Subscribe to iTunes because we actually haven't mentioned that for a while.
Yeah.
We've not got any more reviews. And we
didn't cover half the stuff. This is a great kit. I mean,
that is a good kit.
You look visibly annoyed.
Well, it's just because you've got to go off to your meeting, and I sort of said
He said he could be here till 4:30.
It
feels betrayed.
We're doing the fighting cock later if you want to wait.
Make enough numbers.
Bye. That's it. Far post.
What's that? I've got around the corner.
Yeah.
See you at the far post.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Flav.